Hey, welcome to Inquiring Minds. I'm Steve Harper, and with me, as always, is Donna Carlin. Donna, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. And you?
I am doing great. I'm excited for today's topic. What are we talking about today? Oh no,
So,
that evil, that mysterious, mischief. I was going to say evil, but that's not true.
thanks.
Mischievous
Yeah.
look
The
has
evil
me
Donna Carlin.
concerned.
Here
I'm
we
starting
go.
to sweat a little bit over here already. Gosh,
Okay. Do you act out of obligation or choice?
yes.
Yes. Oh,
You first.
you know,
No,
yeah, you
it's
first.
that's a really interesting question because I guess it depends on who's asking me to act, right? Where my action is coming from, or what what I'm being asked to do and by whom is probably a little different. Like, one of my employees asking me to do something, I feel like I'm obligated, to do the best I can possibly do to deliver for them. For my wife, I'm absolutely obligated to, live by the letter of the law. So I do that just for self-preservation purposes. But I'm curious. What about you? I mean, how do you approach this?
I ask myself the question, if I'm going to say yes, is it out of obligation or choice?
Yeah,
If I'm doing it from obligation, it's depleting.
yeah,
You're forcing yourself to do something because you feel obliged. You aren't obliged, you feel obliged.
yeah,
So, in other words, you feel as if you don't have the choice necessarily. When you do things out of choice, it's a more generous approach to things, and it's definitely more uplifting. So it's really funny because I gauge things through that question. If somebody asks me to do them a favor, if I choose to do it, I'm going to do it wholeheartedly.
yeah,
And if I feel like I'm forced to do it because of the relationship, but you could have a laundry list a mile wide. It's going to be with reticence,
yeah,
and I don't want to do that. The thing is, when I say yes, the recipient at this point in time, because I practiced this for so many years, they know that I'm doing it willingly,
yeah.
and they
Well, that's
really
good.
appreciate it.
Yep.
They also know when I say no, this is what I can do, however, or not at this time, or whatever it is, they actually honor it because they know I will say yes if I can. Those who don't know me very well, I will tell them if I can't do this 100%, I'm not going to do it at all because I'm not going to be satisfied, nor will you.
Yep.
So
Yep.
right now, unfortunately, the answer is no.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's the end of. They could try to convince me till the cows come home. If the answer is no, because I know I don't have the capacity or the desire, or it goes against my grain or whatever it is, the answer is going to be no. And I will invite them to consider other options.
Yeah.
It's the same with clients, though.
Yeah.
People, even my clients are starting to tell other people who want to work with me, well, Donna might not work with you. She only works with people she wants to work with. And they look and they go, seriously? I've never heard that before. And they said, you'll see. She will interview you, not the other way around. And if she doesn't feel that she's excited about working with you, she's going to recommend somebody else.
Yeah.
So, or invite you to look elsewhere. And that's the whole thing. It's the same with my family, though. I don't want to be put in a position where I have to do something. I want to do something. If I'm in the position of having to or obliged to do something, then there is something going on that's much deeper than
Yeah.
that I need to consider.
Yeah, no, you make a really valid point, and I'm going to walk back my comment from my wife just to say I do everything by choice, but that the choice is I want to live, not die.
Oh,
So
don't start. I need to get on the phone with your wife
yeah,
at some
yeah,
point in
but
time. Yeah.
I mean, I actually think about it, from a professional perspective. I do the things that I want to do at work because, and no matter what is being asked of me, because I guess I don't feel obligated now that you've framed it the way that you have. I do it because I want to contribute. I want to do my part. I want to help where I can. And that's the choice I make. I was thinking as you were talking about how this has shifted and changed for me over the last several years, because I think, especially as an entrepreneur and contributor to community, I get asked to do a lot of things, and I get asked to participate in a lot of things, look at a lot of things, hear pitches and give guidance and advice, and most of the time nobody's looking to pay me to do it. And out of a sense of somewhat obligation, I used to do those things because I felt like that was consistent with who my brand is, right? Which is, I'm out there trying to make a
Okay.
difference in the world and contribute. But then that wasn't leaving any time for me. And it wasn't leaving any time for me to work on my stuff. And it became very obvious that I was starting to burn the candle at both ends. And I no longer wanted to do that. And so it was kind of interesting, even through sort of what we're doing with Ripple Central, my website, the relaunch and sort of the things that we've been asking people to do. We're having to guide and direct a whole new audience of folks to do things, because the people that will take and then feel like you're obligated to do what they're asking you to do, it's amazing how many of them won't do anything in return. And so I really had to get very specific about where my boundaries are and be willing to have that conversation now about, rather than make up an excuse for why I can't do it, or I'm sorry, I'm traveling and just no way I can possibly do it. Now I would just say, like, I just don't have the bandwidth. I appreciate what you're looking to do. I understand your approach. I had a conversation that got set up for me by an executive that I really really like and admire. He had a young entrepreneur that's just recently moved to Austin and wanted to sort of give me his pitch, and it was I didn't know it was a pitch. I thought we were just meeting, and he thought we would potentially have something. There would be something of value for us to know each other. But this guy launched into his business plan and his direction and what he's doing, and how he's looked at my connections and my reputation, and how there's so many doors of opportunity I could help him open for this venture that he's starting to build. And I said, look, I'm really excited for you. I'm very happy that you're here and in the environment that you have chosen to be. And I think what your idea has a lot of potential. However, I don't have the time or really the desire at this juncture of my career to get involved at the level that you need me to. And I don't know you that well. And so the open doors that you're looking for me to open up are not doors that I'm comfortable opening. And you would have thought, like, he was like, I just can't believe that's like counterintuitive to your brand. And I'm like, but here's the thing, I get paid for my time. And those introductions that I have, I've spent years, I mean, decades building my network, and there's value there. And it's not accessible for just everybody. And, no offense, but that's just the way it is. And I would not have done that, 10 years ago, right? I would have, oh, whatever, let me make three or four, introductions, not truly knowing who this individual, was, but out of a willingness to help and guide and, just contribute. And, some of those, most of the introductions I made over my career have always worked out because I have a good sense about people, and I have a good sense about this guy as well. But it was too early, right? He was coming in for, the kiss on the first date, and I didn't want to do that. So,
Okay.
and I was, I did not want to, at the end of the day, I did not want to feel like I was beholden to somebody to do anything at this juncture, because it takes away from what I need to be focused on.
And that goes for everything, right? It goes for LinkedIn, and yeah, LinkedIn is a networking platform, and I'm connected to some very high people in government,
Yeah.
in military, policing, corporate environment as well. But, the ones that I'm connected with are very protective of who they're connected with.
Yep.
And I've earned that because I've worked with them. I've worked with, like, within their realm, in a way that they absolutely know who I am and that I will protect that relationship. And when I have somebody who reaches out, through InMail or whatever, saying, I see that you're connected to so and so, please make an introduction. My answer is always no. I will not make an introduction. Please go to somebody who knows you very, very well, and that individual who is willing to make that connection. However, what you might do will implicate my reputation and my relationship with that individual, and I won't put that at risk.
Yeah.
period.
No, that's good.
So I refuse them. I will not do that. Um, those are easier to say no to.
Sure.
Family is much more difficult to
Yes.
have those conversations with, or to do things because you truly want to, not because you feel obliged to. And there's some things that always go on where you say, I really have to do this
Hmm.
because, and you're convincing yourself, and that's where you stop and say, if I'm going to do this, how do I look at it through a lens of generosity, and that I want to give with no expectation of anything in return? Because if I'm in that obligation thing, it's just going to go down a rabbit hole,
Yeah.
and I'll be expected. There's the second word, expected to do it again and again and again because I've set a precedent.
Yeah. Well, and we've talked about this. I've said this on prior episodes as well. I think obligation ends up creating resentment, and resentment is the super secret promise of revenge, right? At the end of the day, you may do it begrudgingly, and like you said, you've now just set yourself up for future asks, and you may feel obligated to fulfill those in the future, but you're going to hate every second of it. You won't be there present. You won't be there with your full heart and your full mind, and they're not getting the best of you, and they're in a sense taking advantage of you, and you're upset about being taken advantage of, but you're not verbalizing it to them. So I think the approach that you talk about is super critical, and it all comes down to how we have these conversations, right? Some of the impetus behind what we're doing with inquiring minds is to put these things on the table, to get people to think about it, and then look at how they apply this to their own personal and professional life. And how many things are you doing out of obligation right now that you need to just stop and have that conversation with that person and say, look, I've done everything I can. If I can't give 100% of my effort, I don't want to continue to go down this path because it sets false expectations. It creates anxiety and stress for me because now I've got things on my plate that aren't even in my realm of responsibility, and or shouldn't be, and I don't want to move that direction. And I think at the end of the day, that's something that we all could take pause and look at and reevaluate, and then say, how do I start to ask myself better questions? How do I have better conversations with these people? And those, especially that are the takers, they'll go find somebody else, to, to be their victim. And those people that really respect and admire you for who you are will be okay. I totally understand. They may not like it at first, but in your presentation of why and how you're doing it, it really does have the potential to make a difference and actually improve that relationship in a big way.
I would invite our listeners to go back to one of our episodes where we talk about, are we responsible to people or for them?
Yeah,
Because when we do things out of obligation, we're becoming responsible for
yeah,
the outcome. And do you really want that?
that's right.
So
Absolutely.
that's something to review and to go back and combine what you're thinking about from this episode, and then bring in the responsible to or for. I want to be responsible to people, not for them, unless I absolutely have to be. And that's a different story. That's a different conversation. People say, I'm obliged to do for an aging parent or an infant or whatever. Absolutely. You are obliged because you took on that role.
Yeah,
That is part of your role. And find a way to do it through loving it and generosity, and knowing you're doing something that will have a huge impact on the other individual because they cannot think or act for themselves.
yeah,
That's the bottom line. Otherwise, you're responsible for your feelings, actions, thoughts, emotions. And if you feel that your back is up against the wall and you're saying yes out of obligation, then beat yourself up at the same time you're beating the other person up. That's the choice that you made.
yeah, yeah. And make a better choice.
Yes.
Well, Donna, this is yet another fascinating topic. I'm anxious to see if people how they respond to this, because I think putting it on the table again with a lot of these topics is really just getting people to start thinking about. I haven't thought about that. This is really something I need to look at a lot closer, and I need especially in our work environments where those priorities and sort of those work environments are shifting. Given the new approach that a lot of companies are taking after we're still with COVID, but the work environment for the most part is coming back. Where do they feel like they need to recreate those boundaries? Reassess how they're approaching their teammates, their colleagues, and their managers, and start to really deep take a deep dive and figure out how to develop that, so that you're looking at those things from a work perspective and making sure that you're doing it by choice and not by obligation. And even in our personal lives, like you said, I mean, looking at the things that we have from a family commitment perspective, our approaches that our friends take and we take with them, reassessing it. Because I will tell you that once I got to this point, and it really was a huge confidence boost to be able to just say no. And here's why. I would like to, however, and I'm just truthful about what I'm committed to and what I'm not. And to your point, if you I can't do it for 100%, you're not in it for 100%, then you're just not going to do any of it. And that, I think, is phenomenal, because it's a beautiful strategy to utilize on anything that you get presented to you, that you really have to decide whether you're making that choice or you do it out of obligation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Well, so how do people get engaged with us to let us know what they thought of this episode, or perhaps suggest topics they'd like us to cover in a future episode?
Well, you should join our Facebook group, Inquiring Minds with Donna Carlin and Steve Harper, and throw in your suggestions. Let us know about you. Let us know what you're living and what you'd like us to discuss in future episodes. And that's a place where we're going to post when our first live stream is going to happen. So I would suggest that you join us
Yeah,
and you find out when that's going to happen. You could also get all our past episodes through that page. So, good place to do a search for topics that interest you. Or go to our websites. Ripplecentral.com is where Steve is living right now, and I'm at Donna Carlin with a K.com. So our social media links are there. It's a way to find out more about what we're doing and to interact with us. So we look forward to hearing from you.
absolutely. Well, Donna, thank you so much. I hope you have a phenomenal rest of your day, and I look forward to being back very soon with another episode of Inquiring Minds.
Have a good one.
All right, you too.